Definitely want to thank APSA for the opportunity. We also, like ARC, are probably not extremely well known in the political science community, so we're very excited to have an opportunity to change that, so thank you. For my remarks, I thought that I would talk just a little bit about the American Overseas Research Centers, for those of you who aren't familiar, talk about 2 fellowship programs that I actually run out of our DC office, and then provide some practical application tips so that we can hopefully have successful applications. So the American Overseas Research Centers, or AORCs, are nonprofit, non-governmental educational institutions that are in countries all over the world. We're currently representing 24 countries. Most of the centers are in the MENA region or Southeast Asia. However, we do have Sub-Saharan Africa, we do have Europe. And basically the centers crop up at the behest of the scholarly community. And so KORC does not go out and plant the centers. We're typically approached by scholars who say we have a real need for support in these areas. And so we have centers in Mongolia, we have a center in Sri Lanka, some very far-flung places. Currently, hopefully working on one in Haiti, and perhaps in a couple years, Cuba. So that's just sort of how the process develops. And as a result, there's a lot of variation in what the centers offer in terms of their expertise. But there are some things that all of the centers share, and so I'll talk about those very briefly. All of the centers have their own fellowships. So they offer fellowships typically for PhD candidates and postdoctoral candidates. These are usually 3 to 6 month commitments. They're typically funded by the State Department or some other funding source, but they do allow you to do research in country in the social sciences and the humanities. They have dedicated in-country staff, which is incredibly important for scholars who are going to places that are a little bit difficult to work. Knowing that you have a resource on the ground who's there to work with you hand in hand while you're on the ground is incredibly important. They provide visa support, they provide security clearances, and a lot of the countries we work in, say like Egypt, Indonesia, it's really, really important that you go through an affiliated or institution that has that gravitas that can help you get your security clearance. We've had many situations where we've been the only institution, Sri Lanka comes to mind, where we have a 100% clearance rate in that country to get people approvals to do research. Some of the centers offer their own hostels, like the American Center for Oriental Research in Amman, Jordan. They offer housing for researchers at a much reduced rate, and if there is not a hostel available, they'll get you in touch with housing that's quite reasonable. And then they offer research libraries with materials that are very specific to that country that you may not be able to obtain elsewhere. So with that introduction, I'll turn to our fellowship programs just very briefly. And in terms of the center's research programs, that you should definitely visit the KORC website, which is KORC.org, and that has links to all of the center's pages, and you can go to their individual sites to learn about their programs. Now, the programs I run, the first is the Multi-Country Research Fellowship. That's a 20-year-old fellowship that we've been running. It's funded by the Department of State. And it's an opportunity that allows PhD candidates and postdoctoral scholars to do advanced research in social sciences and humanities. And the idea being that you should be able to travel to 2 or more countries as long as one of them contains an overseas research center. The goal here is to build our network within the research centers and to create community, a community of scholars within the centers. And so I'll talk a little bit about why this is so important to us as I talk about the tips, but this program has really done a lot to help with building trans-regional research and allowing people to do very strong comparative activities. In terms of restrictions, you must be a U.S. citizen. The awards are about $10,500, so they are smaller. They work out very well for PhD candidates who want to continue doing their dissertation research. They don't need to be continuous, so if you need to travel for 1 month and then come back and then go again. They offer flexibility and they can be merged with other awards. And so we set it up so that if you do get an award from, say, our center in Jordan, you can combine it with the multi-country and you can take them concurrently. So it's a really good flexible program, not an onerous application at all. The second program is the Melon Mediterranean Regional Research Fellowship, and that's funded by the Melon Foundation. And it allows PhD and early postdocs, and we define early postdocs as those who are within 10 years of receiving their PhD. to conduct research in countries bordering the Mediterranean. And again, you can travel to one or more countries as long as one of them hosts an American Overseas Research Center. This program is open to U.S. citizens and permanent residents, and the award amounts tend to be up to $33,000 to conduct research. So on the applications themselves, they're pretty straightforward. We ask for an application online, 1,500-word narrative, CV, bibliography, 2 letters of recommendation, and transcripts if you're a PhD candidate. So not too strenuous, I hope. Applications are going to be actually live in the next week or so, so I definitely encourage you to go to our website and take a look and see if these programs meet your needs. The awards are typically issued in mid-April, and then travel begins in May. And so in terms of tips, I think these are going to be quite similar to what others have said, and I hope that they are very straightforward. The first is to know the center that you're proposing to visit. I think we get a lot of applications where people sort of toss in a center so that they'll be eligible, but haven't really taken time to learn about what the center's strengths are. We encourage you to get in touch with the center directors, because a lot of times they're academics, quite a few of them are academics. In fact, our centers in Tunisia and Algeria are run by political scientists. And so we encourage people to reach out to our directors to say, is this project feasible? Is the timing that I'm suggesting, does it make sense? That sort of thing. And that goes with the second tip, which is to make a really strong case for why you need to be in that country and why you specifically need that on-the-ground experience. Then making your methodology extremely clear. So I sit in a lot of these selection meetings, and there's a lot of guessing going on. This is what we think the applicant proposed. Is that really what they're going to do? And they're horse trading, and they're thinking about what, what's really proposed. And if you can make that clear up front, so that a layperson who's not necessarily an expert in your field can determine what you mean, that would be absolutely fantastic. And then letters of recommendation. This should be pretty straightforward, but please make sure that your letters are relevant to the project.
Not always under your control.
That's true. But I think, we get a lot of letters that say, oh, the X person is fantastic, and they'll just do whatever they do, they'll excel, and this and that, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the project that they've proposed. And so, to the extent possible that you are able to give us a letter from someone who is familiar with you and your work, the better. So I'll stop there, but definitely we encourage you to visit our website to learn more about these opportunities. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we put out application tips throughout between now and January when the applications are due. So thank you.
Okay.